Hi, this is Brandy Shantz, and you're listening to Living Chronic. Today, I'm speaking with Mary Esna-Ashari. She's the Senior Director, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and has a very personal story when it comes to Crohn's disease. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and hear your perspective. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on today.
So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your experience with Crohn's disease?
Sure. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I have four family members that have Crohn's disease. The two people that I'm closest to are my dad and my husband. Um, and my dad's diagnosis is really what kicked all of this off in the late 90s. I was in high school. I was working at a veterinary hospital, and it was either the Thanksgiving or the Christmas break. I can't remember which. And my mom called me and said, "I'm at the emergency room with your dad. He's having surgery. We don't know what's wrong, but he's having surgery on his abdomen. He's having a lot of pain." And I had younger brothers and sisters, and she said, "I need you to come and and help manage them." So I said, okay. I went over to the hospital, and before I got there, the surgeon had come out and told my mom, "Your husband has Crohn's disease, and we had to remove a couple inches of his large intestine, but he's in recovery now, and the nurse will tell you more about Crohn's disease when you leave." And that was it. So we didn't know how to spell it. We
Right.
didn't know what part of the body it affected. We didn't know if it was terminal, contagious. We knew nothing about it. We had
Right.
no idea. Um, and this was before really the internet. There was internet, but that it was pretty limited to email and
Mhm.
chat rooms and things like that. There wasn't a lot of information about it. So over the next couple of years, he really struggled. And as a teenager, and I was about to go to college, it was really hard to support my family, support my siblings, support my mom, support my dad. He tried several different medications before he got his flare under control. Um, and he's the kind of guy, he doesn't like to talk about it, but you can definitely tell when he's not feeling well. Um, and that was how my journey with Crohn's and colitis started.
Hmm. And then you ended up marrying somebody with Crohn's as well. So, was your husband already diagnosed with Crohn's disease when you met him, or was this something that came about after your marriage?
Yeah, so we had been dating maybe 2 or 3 months, and we were eating dinner, and I was actually already working for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation at that point. I had just started, I was brand new. Um, and he just suddenly said, "Oh, I've got this really horrible pain in my side." And he said, "I think I have appendicitis." I said, "No, that's not the side your appendix is on." I said, "Now that I've started this new job, I know I've met a couple of gastroenterologists. Let me ask them on Monday what we should do." One of them said, "Yeah, I think he needs a colonoscopy. That doesn't sound right."
Hmm.
And so I convinced him. It took me about a month, but I convinced him to go get a colonoscopy, and he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease that day. And 3 years later, we got married, and 3 years after that, we started a family and have two little boys. Um, but being a caregiver for someone with Crohn's disease, it can be a challenge. It's a great thing. But yeah, we've been married now for 10 years, and um, Crohn's is a part of our life every day. Not just because I work for the foundation. It's just a part. You just kind of have this new normal that you're working with.
No, absolutely. In so many ways, how lucky was he to marry somebody who knows exactly how to deal with Crohn's disease and be a caretaker? Because I think it is very difficult for people. Maybe it's someone you're married to, a child, suddenly this Crohn's disease, or you see diagnosis comes up and it's, well, what's my role? What can I do? How can I help this person that was perfectly healthy at one point, and now I'm trying to learn how to help this person live their best life, right?
Right, right. And it's hard because we like to go out to eat. We like to go to concerts and festivals and things like that. And the first 3 years after his diagnosis they were pretty tough for us. It was definitely a test
Hmm.
because a lot of the stuff we like to do is outside in the summertime, and the only bathroom options are porta potties.
Yep.
And if you're flaring, you, one, don't want to go in public, and two, um, you really don't want to go in a porta potty, and I can't blame someone for that. And we tried a lot of things. We got the VIP passes so we would have access to nice bathrooms. We brought quote unquote potty packs with us
Hmm.
with air freshener and sanitizer and wipes and all the things, and I would carry that with me in my purse, and security always gave me a hard time and I'd have to explain it um, every time, and I didn't really mind doing that. But we tried a lot of things, and it was really hard because it took him about 3 years to go into clinical remission, and even then he still has symptoms.
Hmm. I think that's
You know,
what's, I talk about a lot of things I wish I knew when I was first diagnosed. What do you wish you knew as a caretaker when your loved one was first diagnosed? But one of the biggest things is when the doctor says you're in clinical remission, that does not mean the symptoms are gone. It's
right?
really hard for me to even wrap my head around it. My husband still can't wrap his head around it. You know,
Yeah,
you said you're in remission, you're feeling well. Why are we running for a bathroom? And it's
exactly.
one of those things most people don't know. It's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. He still has urgency to go to the bathroom. He still suffers every day with fatigue, pretty severe fatigue. Um, we have had to limit a lot of our social activities, just because, again, he doesn't, well, particularly since we have a 2 year old and a 4 year old, he doesn't want to go do things with the boys by himself, just in case he has to go to the bathroom. And then
Right.
what do you do with two crazy little boys? So, it's just something that we're always working around. We're not really working against, we're just working around it. Um, but it can't, yeah, I think, and a lot of IBD patients or inflammatory bowel disease patients, the diet is so different for everyone. And I think part of the contributing factor for my husband is that he has to eat pretty bland
Hmm.
food, and he's probably not absorbing all of the nutrients that he should be. So, he's just kind of had this constant cycle of, I need to eat what makes me feel better, but that's not really providing me nourishment for energy and other things. So it's just but my stomach feels better today. So I'm gonna eat mashed potatoes.
Yep.
I mean, it's just kind of but I want a salad, like I really do. I just can't have it.
Right. Now, yeah, I understand that battle. It's difficult. Have you guys found any ways to kind of meet in the middle on different restaurants to go out to, or ways to, kind of help out things a little bit but still have fun?
That is a great question. So, yes, the answer is yes to that. So, what we've started doing is looking for restaurants. And in Atlanta, there are so many amazing foodie restaurants, just so many incredible different cuisines and foods for restaurants of different cultures, and we love trying them all out. So what we've started doing is going out on like a Monday night or a Tuesday night, because those are typically their off days, like they're the slowest days. We definitely get a babysitter. Kids stay with grandma, and we go early. So there's not a lot of people there. We can take our time, and we try and plan it so that it's not during traffic, so that we don't get stuck in traffic. Because having a bathroom emergency when you're stuck in Atlanta traffic is a very scary thought for anyone with IBD or digestive issues.
I think it's also scary for the caregiver. You know what? I'll ask you this because I know my husband has had to be that person. Have you had the side of the road, big jacket blocking your loved one? This is happening right now.
Not yet, but we are prepared for that at all times. We have got emergency jump kits in the car, blankets in the car. I mean, we're prepared. And you know, it's something that's always on the back of our minds. And you know, most days it's okay, but you know, we know that after he eats, he needs a bathroom about 30 minutes after that.
Right.
So we try and time it so that we can go and have fun and enjoy things and try new things. Yeah, but that's pretty much how we've found a workaround, at least with going out to eat and going to festivals and things like that.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's smart. We're not always that good, and we have had the emergency side of the road, blanket up, you know,
Oh, God.
make it work moment in our lives. So, you know, having a father and a husband who both have Crohn's disease, what would you say is probably the biggest thing about your life that has changed?
That's a really great question. You have to always keep them in mind when you're making any kind of plans. And not that there's anything bad with that. My husband takes a biologic, so he gets an infusion every 4 weeks. I know the 3 days before his infusion, he is tired, he's dragging, he's not feeling great. So that's when I know I have to have all of my ducks in a row. I have to meal prep. I have to make sure all the laundry's done. I have to make sure just kind of the basic, our basic needs are met, so that those 3 or 4 days when he's just really feeling bad, that I can support him through that. I try and make sure that I'm not out of town for work, and I don't have a lot of stuff going on. And it's kind of the same with my dad when we have Christmas or birthdays or, you know, different family gatherings. I have to be mindful about what food I serve and when it is during the day, and you know, you just kind of have to always keep it in the back of your mind. And it's really not something that I mind at all, but I think that's a pretty big change, that because of Crohn's disease, we just have to make these accommodations.
Yes. I always like to point that out. It's just an accommodation. I think
Yeah.
for me, when I was first diagnosed, I was like your dad. I was like, what is this? Spell it again. Give me a pamphlet. I have no idea what's happening. But, you know, just those little things that they're accommodating. I didn't think about it. I kept thinking, oh, I'm ruined. I can't do anything. And the reality,
Right.
I can do everything. I just need an accommodation. And I think it took my husband a while to learn that as well.
It takes time, and I think you have to, as a caregiver and as a patient, give yourself time, and it's never going to be perfect. It is okay to be tired and frustrated and just sick of it. But yeah, it definitely takes time to wrap your head around the whole, just the whole thing.
Yes. Well, it's a lot to take in for everybody, the patient, the
Sure.
family, the friends, work. You know, I don't know how you guys have, you know, accommodated the work schedule around it, but when I was first diagnosed, I couldn't go anywhere. Figuring out what my life looked like and how to explain to a boss that I might have to get up in the middle of the meeting, nothing said, and just go
Right.
because, I'm having an emergency. And I ended up changing my entire career around it because, you know, at the time I'd worked in intelligence. So everything's done in a top secret facility. You can't do any work at home. It was just impossible. And to my mind, back then, it was insurmountable. So I changed my entire career so I could be very flexible, particularly around the mornings, because that's my worst. For me, that's
Sure.
if I can get to 11 a.m., I'm usually pretty okay. Not always,
Yeah.
usually pretty okay. Um, but yeah, it's just those accommodations and learning what things look like with your disease and how do you accommodate for that. So, did you guys have to do anything like that to make things look differently?
Yeah, my husband had a conversation with his boss, with his current company. He's been there for 7 or 8 years. And his boss was really great. He said, the day of your infusion, if you want to work from home that day and the day after, that's totally fine.
Right.
His infusion generally takes 3 to 4 hours. And he said, just flex your time out this week.
Mhm.
So, he didn't have to take additional time off
Great.
or anything like that. So he was very, very flexible. And I know that's not the experience for a lot of people.
Mhm.
So we're really grateful for that. Um, and then, honestly, for my professional career, it hasn't really impacted me too much, or limited me in any way. Again, I just have to make sure that if I'm going to be out of town when I know my husband's having his Remicade infusion,
Mhm.
that I've got some childcare backup,
Right.
or someone to come help with the dogs, or whatever, just to make sure we have things planned out in advance. Um, so yeah, but I know that my husband has really appreciated being able to work fully remotely for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
It has been a game changer for him. I think it's alleviated a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety that he didn't even know he was experiencing.
Yes.
Going into the office every day and being on your game and having to um, put up that face and put up that front all day long when you just want to put your head down for a minute and just take a breath or go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that in a super corporate
It really is. Well, and
place.
even little things. A friend of mine who has UC recently accepted a new job. She went from working at home all the time to going into an office every single day. And the first question I asked her, from Crohn's patient to UC patient, was, "Oh my God, are you scared to get on the metro in the morning?" Because I am deathly afraid of the metro before 11 a.m. because I don't know what's going
Yeah.
to happen. And nobody wants to have an accident on the metro. And we had a whole conversation about just the anxiety around that, getting on the metro in the morning and wondering, oh my gosh, what if I have an accident on the Washington, D.C. metro system? But it's real.
I mean, that is worst nightmare. Like, that's the stuff of worst nightmares right there.
Yes, but it can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It can happen. And even if you plan and do everything right,
Hmm.
it can still happen.
Sure.
So I think just, not letting the fear and anxiety of that, making changes in your life so that you can still live fully and wonderfully every day. But just making changes. I think I know a lot of people with Crohn's and colitis that have had to change jobs and change
Mhm.
careers because of the commute, because of the workplace requirements.
Mhm.
And I think that's just something that people with chronic illnesses have to do, unfortunately.
It is. It's difficult, and I think when I went through it, I didn't know where to reach out to. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was the only job I've had since the day I graduated from college and took my oath of office to be a U.S. Army officer, was a job that was in a top secret facility. and I had no idea how to, enter this world of civilians. you know,
Right. Yes.
who are these people that get to work from home? Who are they? What do they do? And so I just,
How do you do
yeah,
that?
what does this look like? So you don't go anywhere. Yeah, it was interesting. So as kind of putting on your hat as the senior director, Crohn's Colitis Foundation, what are the resources out there when you're, me or another patient who's like, wait a minute, I cannot do this job with Crohn's disease.
Yeah, there are a lot of resources specifically around the workplace and and accommodations on the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation website, which is crohnscolitisfoundation.org.
Okay.
There's a whole section on how children or teenagers can get accommodations in schools. There are letters for adults that they can utilize. They can either provide a template to their doctor, so their doctor can write a letter for them explaining what the condition is, what the symptoms are, what accommodations they may need. So there's templates that your doctor can use. There's templates you can utilize with your human resources department. There's a lot of different really simple things that a person can do in the workplace. I think first you really have to take a leap of faith and trust your HR department, your human resources department, and let them know that you have a chronic illness. And I think it's another really important thing for anyone with a chronic illness to. So there's also information about Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, understanding what that is, what your benefits are, what your rights are
Mhm.
as a patient, and how to use that. And all of that is on our website. So I think first, if you're in a workplace and you're diagnosed with Crohn's or colitis, that is something you really should take the time to learn more about and get more information on so that you can protect yourself and your job.
Yes. And just as a reminder to everybody listening, your website and additional links are also on my website, livingchronic911.com. So even if you forget the whole Crohn's Colitis Foundation.org, the link is right there on my website as well. But I think most patients, or at least many of us, I certainly was one, are afraid to go to HR because you think not just, you know, oh, they can't really help me. But I think also for us, we're Americans first, and we have a culture about us that's about how much you work. So to go in and say,
Correct.
I might not be able to put in X amount of effort, you start to worry about, will I get the next promotion? Will I ever go any further in this career field? Will I be the first one on the chopping block if there needs to be reduction in staff? I know we've heard a lot more recently about work-life balance, and you have a lot of people having those discussions. But the reality is, for the majority of my life, the overwhelming majority, in my mid 40s, we've just been a workaholic culture, and it was expected that you're going to put in a lot of hours and always be there for the company, and your health comes second. So, what would you say to people like me who are afraid maybe I'll never get another promotion, or maybe I'll always be considered second to a healthy person in the workforce if I admit that I'm disabled?
Sure. Well, I think that's what. So yes, and that is all very, very valid. And you would not be the only person who would be really concerned or nervous about going to their human resources department or to their boss. Um, but if a company says, well, because you have Crohn's disease, we can't promote you or you need to work more, et cetera, et cetera. That's where Family Medical Leave Act and the American Disabilities Act comes into play. And you have those protections and those rights, those federally protected
Hmm.
rights, where they can't fire you because you have Crohn's disease. They can't not promote you or give you, if you go on leave, you can't they can't fire you while you're on leave. Um, they can't. They can give you a different job, your employer can, but it has to be parallel. It has to be the same scale as it was before. So I think if you're not comfortable with, that's something you have to go with your intuition on, is find the right person that is safe for you, and start working up to your HR. But at the end of the day, I think human resources is there to protect
Right.
us. Um, and by law, they can't betray your confidence and your private patient information. So, if you tell the one person in human resources, I have a chronic disease, they can't go to other people in the company and say that.
Right.
So, and if they do, that's discrimination and they can get sued for that.
And, it's also important to point out because I've had this conversation with so many people. There was an entire Reddit thread that just went on, and everybody had the same perspective. When you apply for a job and they ask you if you have a disability, everybody overwhelmingly, no, say no, absolutely not. They won't hire you. But the reality is, there's actual benefits to companies when they do hire the disabled. So being honest is not going to uh, hurt you. Like I think everybody believes that saying yes on that question when you apply to a job means you're not getting a job.
Right, absolutely. I think and there's a lot of discussion around what is a disability. There are people within the Crohn's and colitis communities who wouldn't consider themselves disabled. And then there are those who do consider themselves that. And then there's some who haven't even thought about it. But you are absolutely right in that companies are looking to be more inclusive of people with disabilities. And I feel in my gut, I feel like it's important if you're applying for a job, that if you can't be honest about who you are, then do you really want to work
Right.
there? And I'm saying that in a place of privilege because I can do that, but of course I understand if you can't, you have to have that job. I think at the end of the day, it's just better to be honest. And again, they can't discriminate against you.
Yes, I think that's what's most important to point out because, and it's taken me 10 years to come to the place where I am, of course. But I am disabled. I was in denial about that for years. The only big discussion I have around that is when I'm able to run and I'm in a race, I never ever check myself as, an athlete with a disability because I don't think it's right to compete against somebody missing a leg. But I swear I think we should have a special category because my body does not get up and go the way yours does.
No, absolutely not.
We do have a disability, and you're right. I've learned if I'm not 100% honest, something's going to go wrong because because
Exactly.
there's no way to hide this from the world. I've tried. I've done all I could. I've put on the face. I've done all the things. I am who I am, and if I'm in a flare, I'm in a flare. So, or if it's winter, we were just discussing before we started recording all the illness going around.
Oh yes. All of the germs are going around.
So I'm back with the N95 mask. My husband's got the N95 mask on. And everybody asks me, "Oh, are you really scared of the flu?" And I have to say, "Well, yes, I am scared of the flu. I can die. It doesn't end well for me." So these are conversations we all do have.
Right, absolutely. And I think, as silly as this might sound, I think it's the things one of my recommendations for any patient is take the time to write down the things that you're anxious about. It could be explaining your disease, like what is your disease? It could be explaining why you're wearing a mask when you go out during certain times of the year. It could be why you don't go to baseball games in the middle of the summertime and eat hot dogs. It could be any of those things. Write them down and have them right in front of you and practice over time your response so that you're not hunting for words. You know your response, you feel confident in your response, And it is what it is. This is me. Take it or
Yep.
leave it. This is why I wear it, and that's it. I think that alleviates a lot of
That's
anxiety.
really great advice. That is really great advice. So, as both a caregiver and as a director at Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, what is something you really wish you knew when you first started becoming a caregiver? And what's the one thing that, as a Crohn's Colitis Foundation representative, you would like every IBD patient to know?
Oh, that is such a good question, and I wish I was able to share this answer every day. As a caregiver or as a patient, I think hands down, and as an employee of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, I think hands down, the most important thing is for you to find your family, find your community. For some people, that is online Facebook communities or a virtual community forum. Some people prefer a virtual or in-person support group. Some people like to do activities like our Teen Challenge half
Mm-hmm.
marathon, running program, or our Take Steps walk, where there's hundreds and hundreds of people out there at these walks. For kids, there's Camp Oasis. There's our Power of Two, which is one-on-one peer support through an app. So you can talk one-on-one to another patient or another caregiver that's gone through, if not exactly, very similar situations to what you've had. Having that support, whether you need it at that time or
Mm-hmm.
not, knowing that you have that support and what fills your cup, and helps you feel supported, I think is the number one most important thing a person can do to support themselves with a chronic illness.
That is really great advice. We've got a lot of great advice for you today. Um, Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We've been speaking with Mary Esna-Ashari, Senior Director, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and this has been an amazing episode. I would like to thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me. And to all of those listening, there are people out there in the IBD community that want to support you. You are not alone.
Thank you so much for that. We depend on you.
Thank you, Brandy.